This is the Brave New Coin Crypto Conversation, hosted by Andy Pickering.
Hi everyone, Andy Pickering here. I'm your host and welcome to the Crypto Conversation, a Brave New Coin podcast where we talk to the people building the future in the Bitcoin, blockchain and cryptocurrency space. Today's podcast is brought to you by Leverage, a new fully featured decentralized futures exchange without compromise. Are you ready to trade the future of crypto today? Well, Leverage is a DEX, so you can trade with your keys and sign orders just with one click, and Leverage is fast. Yes, indeed, Leverage is powered by Gluon, a new layer 2 solution with the scalability and speed of a centralized exchange and the super low fees of a DEX. Yes, Leverage, the new exchange that combines the best features of sci-fi and DeFi, so you can trade crypto spot or crypto derivatives with up to 100x leverage while maintaining control of your assets at all times. It's like William Gibson said, the future is already here, but in this case, it's evenly distributed and completely decentralized. Go to leverage.io, and Leverage is spelled Leverj.io, and trade the future of crypto today.
Yeah, boy!
My guest today is Samson Mow. Samson is the CSO at Blockstream. He's the CEO at Pixelmatic, and he is the creator of Infinite Fleet, which is a very cool looking game, which we'll talk a bit more about later. And all of this makes Samson quite a busy guy, I imagine. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Andy. It's great to be back on again.
Look, one of the reasons I wanted to have you back, Samson, is because, you know, I did an episode maybe 2 weeks ago about the announcement by Aker ASA. Is that how you say it? Let's just go with Aker. So Aker is this Norwegian company. It's a 100-year-old company. It's an old company that has been doing, you know, fishing, construction, oil, engineering, really, you know, interesting stuff over a period of a long time, and out of nowhere it seemed they published this investor letter that they essentially said that they were setting up a new company called Seetee, and this company was dedicated to investing in projects throughout the Bitcoin ecosystem, and of course it will also keep its liquid investable assets in Bitcoin. And now, so I did a full podcast on the investor letter last week, just because I thought the letter was so interesting, and, you know, from my perspective, I thought it was one of the more bullish pieces of Bitcoin content published this year. And I think you'll agree that with, you know, the likes of Michael Saylor around, that is quite a high bar to set, because he's published some quite bullish content as well. But, you know, I understand that Blockstream is a little bit involved with Aker, and maybe there's only so much you can talk about here, but I would love to get some commentary from you. So just, yeah, I think we should start there. So I don't know, what was your reaction to that letter?
Well, I thought it was a great letter. It read pretty fluidly, and it read like someone wrote it with a very deep understanding of the entire Bitcoin ecosystem. And I just thought it was pretty amazing to see that coming, like you said, from a company that is 100 plus years old. But I think that is going to be the trend as more people awaken and understand Bitcoin and its potential for impact on human civilization. We actually have another partnership called Crypto Garage. It's a joint venture between us, Digital Garage, a Japanese public market company, and Tokyo Tanshi, which is a 112-year-old Japanese financial institution that primarily deals with interbank lending and bonds. So, you know, there is a lot of this going on. We just have to look more closely, and some of these are not as high profile, but I think the trend definitely is for traditional financial institutions and, you know, older entities like this to try to modernize and get involved in the new Bitcoin economy.
Yes, indeed. And look, if you'll forgive me, Samson, I'd love to just read a little bit of a passage from the Acre letter. Because so the chairman of the company, who is, I think he's Norway's second richest person, effectively a billionaire, but he writes, and as you say, it's amazing to see that, you know, people like this, because he's an older guy, he'd be, you know, in his 60s, 70s, whatever it is, but, you know, for him to kind of go down the rabbit hole and write prose like this, it's fantastic to see. So he wrote that it's amazing to see that the cryptocurrency space attracts so many intelligent people of younger generations, much like the internet did in its infancy. When precursors existed earlier, most would argue that Tim Berners-Lee's World Wide Web from 1990 was the start of what we recognize as the internet. Today we take it for granted, but it has only been around for 30 years. Commentary on the internet's lack of useful applications and expert forecasts about its likely demise were commonplace in the 90s. Bitcoin was invented in 2009 and will go through similar waves of development before it achieves the application maturity we are now so used to with the internet. But the real value will come when we let our curiosity navigate beyond the algorithms. You can only challenge preconceived ideas when you are willing to go outside of your comfort zone. Bitcoin has inspired us to challenge our intuitive understanding of money, and having followed the crypto discourse for a while, we decided to reach out to the engineers who have made it their mission to change the inner workings of money. And so then he goes on to say that, you know, this morning we are proud to announce that Seetee has formed a partnership with Blockstream, a global leader in Bitcoin and blockchain technology. And Blockstream's leadership, of course, includes Adam Back, the inventor of Hashcash, a 1997 precursor to Bitcoin. And then he finishes that segment by saying, with Blockstream as our partner, we are confident that we can navigate this industry. And so again, Samson, don't want to put you too much on the spot here, commercial sensitivities aside, but you know that's a nice partnership to have, and probably quite a good endorsement of what you guys are doing at Blockstream.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's very high praise, and I was chatting with Andreas Brecken, and he called Roque Norway's Elon Musk. So, you know, he's a very high profile and highly regarded individual. So it's definitely an amazing partnership to have between Blockstream and Seetee. And Adam was pretty excited too that he had that shout out in the letter. His comment was, it was like these guys are the smart money, and they've absorbed a lot of very hard-won lessons very rapidly. And I think what he means by that is, like, you know, they understand the need for layer 2 scaling for things like the Lightning Network and the Liquid Network. And I think they also mentioned in the letter running their own payment servers. So potentially it's BTC Pay server, and that implies self-custody and management of your own funds, and, you know, having control of your own keys. So it seems like they caught up very rapidly, and those hard-won lessons of the Bitcoin Civil War, scaling debate, all those things are just now part of the history books that people can read through and internalize that information and, you know, build on top of that.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And, you know, I mentioned Michael Saylor before. So it's amazing to see that people like Michael Saylor and this guy Rock in Norway, and there will be, you know, countless others as well. It's so much easier now for people like this to get a grasp on the history and future potential and the implications for, you know, human civilization that are possible because of Bitcoin. And the reason that these guys can do this and is, as you say, because of the amazing content that has been produced over the last decade, but in particular probably over the last, you know, 3 or 4 years by, you know, people like yourself, and there's a whole list of other people as well. But you know, as a long-term Bitcoiner yourself, I'm sure you're enjoying where we're at now.
Yeah, and I think even, you know, people like you that are creating podcasts and documenting history as we live it are also a key part of that ecosystem. And, you know, you're basically kind of historians in a way, and
Yes.
there is a market payoff for this this service that you're providing, which is people can go back and they can listen to things as they happen at those points in time. I believe, if I recall correctly, Michael Saylor said that one of the key reasons that he decided to go all into Bitcoin is because we turned that point during that civil war, and he saw like this thing cannot be corrupted by large and powerful corporations, and he saw that we could pull through that. The users could enforce the rule set and enforce or reject changes to the consensus rules through the UASF. So everything that is happening, everything that everyone is doing, is having a material impact on Bitcoin's evolution.
Yeah, that is exactly right. And yeah, so I mean, the Bitcoin Civil War was such a turning point in Bitcoin's history, and I know you had a massive role to play in that. And I guess because before that, one of the arguments against Bitcoin was that, anyone could effectively fork Bitcoin or copy Bitcoin at any time. And so, that would make it, where's the value proposition, right? But so that has been proven to be not as easy as it would seem. And so we've kind of passed that hurdle. But I think, as soon as you pass, to use a video game analogy, as soon as you defeat one boss, there's always another boss on the horizon, right? And I think, Samson, at the moment, you've talked about this, one of the big narratives against Bitcoin at the moment is this idea that, Bitcoin mining is incredibly energy intensive, and Bitcoin mining is boiling the oceans, and therefore we shouldn't be involved in, buying Bitcoin is a crime against the planet, right? So
yeah,
yeah,
there's always something.
There's always something. So I want to talk about this a little bit, and then kind of get your thoughts on, because there's a sort of an argument to push back here. So well, let's where should we kick off here?
Well, I guess we can go back to the earlier point, like our relationship and the genesis of that. So it's really anchored in mining. So our first engagements were discussing with someone there about potentially getting involved in the mining industry. And I think they started to understand that a lot of their goals for greener energy production and the technology that we can offer, which is bringing mining to any location on Earth through a combination of our mining technology, our modular containers for mining, and combining that with even our satellite technology, where you can mine without internet, was a very interesting proposition. So that was kind of where that discussion kicked off. And then Adam had a number of calls with them. We kind of brought them down the rabbit hole into other things like liquid side chains and using this technology for different financial offerings, which they also touched upon in their shareholder letter too. And I think Jack Mallers had a hand in pitching them the Lightning proposition as well. And that's kind of the genesis of it. But the anchoring point is that mining, and I think they're very interested in the ability for Bitcoin mining to balance out electrical grids and consumption spikes, and even things like ways to use mining to decrease negative impacts on the environment. Like instead of burning gas flares, you can just turn on a mining container and consume the natural gas.
It's funny how Michael Saylor always pops up in these conversations, but there's always a Michael Saylor tweet for any Bitcoin occasion. So 3 hours ago he tweeted that Bitcoin runs on stranded energy at the edge of the grid and acts as a global battery for otherwise idle generation facilities. It recycles wasted energy, mitigates capital destruction, and provides a mechanism to commercialize clean, renewable energy wherever we may find it. And it's what he's good at it is, Michael Saylor is quite good at explaining complex ideas in quite exotic, flamboyant, exciting language, right? But he's bang on, eh?
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. I mean, he's kind of a tweet poet in some ways, much like Max Kaiser is.
Yes, exactly. Well, and the reason he actually tweeted this is, I don't know if you've seen it because it was only published 6 hours ago, but have you seen the website? It's like it's a mini landing page website that Square Crypto put up today called Bitcoin Mythology. You seen
I
it?
haven't seen it, but no, I haven't seen it, but sounds good.
So it's amazing. So do you remember when they're in the early days of Square and they did that cool little Bitcoin story in a kind of almost children's fantasy book style?
Yep.
So they've done it in that same style, and effectively it is a really nice pushback against the what we're talking about. It's a pushback against the idea that Bitcoin is burning the planet, and they call it the Square Crypto Book of Bitcoin Mythology. And so I think
Yeah.
this is volume 1, Bitcoin mining, and but it's just written so well. I'll put a link in the show notes, but you can just go to bitcoinmythology.org and yeah, get amongst it.
Yeah. I mean, this is a relatively, it's not that new a narrative, but it's been a narrative that's kind of been lurking around in the recesses of the internet for some time. And now I think more recently it's come to prominence. I think just because of Bitcoin's rise in prominence too. So Bitcoin's rise in prominence just brings along the FUD, whether it's mining or Tether or just some random thing that eventually gets disproven and thrown out. But I think the reason why Bitcoin mining is a target for this FUD is just because it's so easy to calculate the consumption, the carbon emission or energy consumption, because you can see how many terahash it is, you can calculate how many machines that you would have and how much electricity you would consume. Whereas with the traditional system, financial system, you just have a very opaque layer over everything. You just don't know how much it costs to produce the bills, to transport the bills from ATM to bank to vault, or to produce the bills themselves or produce the coins themselves. And then you have the whole issue of the bank data centers, how much energy are those drawing, physical security. There's just a ton of things involved in the legacy financial system that is not so straightforward to calculate. So I think it's a much easier thing to look at Bitcoin and just do a quick back of the napkin calculation and go, oh, look at this. But I think the great thing is that Seetee's shareholder letter did confront that head on. And they said, this similar to Square, they said this is one of the criticisms along with, transaction throughput. And they outlined it very clearly in their letter, and they likened it to gold production, which is also relatively straightforward to analyze. But I think it's even worse because gold does produce CO2 emissions, and they outlined it as 100 million tons per year compared to Bitcoin estimated 30 million tons per year. But gold mining and processing actually produces a lot more environmental waste, like toxic chemicals, and that's not factored into the CO2 and not factored into the transportation and storage and maintaining of security of the gold reserves. So, it's just something that people want to pick on easily, but it's a much deeper, complex, nuanced topic. I mean, you could get into the whole discussion about what is clean energy. Is it just renewable energy that doesn't produce any waste? Or is it just anything that doesn't pollute the environment? Like in that sense, I would call nuclear energy green too, because it's not producing any emissions and it's relatively safe if you're using a modern facility.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I'd love to just understand a bit more about the Blockstream mining offer then, Samson. So like on your website, you say mining like a boss. We've been at this for a while. Blockstream mining provides enterprise class mining facilities, management and support for the co-location of Bitcoin mining equipment. So I kind of understand what you mean by co-location, but yeah, just explain exactly what you guys are up to there. Because this has been in the works for a while. I remember and the sort of, if we go back to sort of Bitcoin Civil War days, that was when, Bitmain really dominated the mining discussion. And well, you fought some battles against Bitmain in those days as well. And
Yeah.
but now they're sort of they're still in the picture, but much less so. And then we've got the rise of these new mining facilities and organizations such as Blockstream around the world. So yeah, what's going on?
Yeah, so I guess part of that long history with mining is also incorporating the fact that I used to run BTC China's mining division, which is primarily a mining pool. So that was the BTCC pool, and it was about fluctuating between 15 to 20% of the network hash rate back then. So I do have a long running history with Bitcoin mining. But yeah, like the reason that after I left BTCC and joined Blockstream, we decided to pivot or make that foray or transition of Blockstream into mining was partially driven by the whole Bitcoin civil war and the threat from the miners, specifically Bitmain led, that they would fork off and they would enforce a change to the protocol, and also block SegWit from deployment. So having too much hash rate under the control of one entity is a systematic risk for Bitcoin's decentralization. It's not so bad if it's just a pool that has a lot of hash rate, because miners are very they're not very loyal. Like they'll go to the pool that has the better fees and better luck. But the problem happens when you have one entity producing the miners, hosting them at their facility, and also managing the pool too, which was largely the case for Bitmain. They had two pools actually, BTC.com and Antpool, and they were at that time the bulk of the supply of actual mining hardware. So during that Civil War time, when I was running BTC Pool, Jihan actually threatened some of our customers that if you stay with BTCC Pool and you don't support my fork, then I won't sell you hardware anymore. And that was pretty damaging at the time, but we stood our ground and we held our position that this is an upgrade that needs to happen, and it's not a good idea to enforce a consensus rule change on the network to force people into a 2 megabyte size block or whatever it was. So Blockstream's offering is hosting primarily, and we started out with prop mining. So right after I joined, we bought some mining hardware and we started self-mining, and that was the genesis of our offering. So we expanded from that. We secured a site in Quebec and one in Georgia, and altogether between the two sites, we have about 300 megawatts. So we're one of the largest in North America. We're still building out and utilizing all that capacity, and we're also looking for additional areas to get more power as well. But the key here is that we want to service enterprise clients with the end goal of being able to service smaller miners, like someone with 10, 20 machines. But right now, it's primarily enterprise focused. And when we say, we're meeting all the qualifications for security and whatnot, that is mainly about our Fidelity deal. So we have Fidelity as our customer for hosting their miners, and they have very stringent security and auditing requirements, and we're able to meet all of those. So we're probably the best institutional mining service provider on the market currently.
Nice. And could you, what does co-location mean?
So that means you would host your miners at our facilities.
Yes.
You can buy them yourself, or you could ask us to help procure, and we can see what we can do. But I'll preface that with a disclaimer, which is right now it's very hard to buy ASIC miners for Bitcoin, just because demand has been skyrocketing.
Yeah, it's such an interesting dynamic, the way that that ASICs come online and then new models kind of outcompete the old models, and then the hash rate falls and then the old ones can come back online, and in the meantime it sort of it makes it harder for things like I don't know, anything else that wants those specific chips, right?
Yeah. Well, I think the constraint is really the foundries aren't willing to give capacity to the companies making ASIC. So MicroBT, eBang, Canaan, and Bitmain, like they're not able to get more capacity just because they have their large customers like Apple or HiSilicon, and those are steady revenue streams. So they're not going to go to Apple and say, we're not going to make your iPhone chips this year because Bitcoin mining is hot now, because then they would alienate their large customers in favor of a demand that is very volatile. The demand for Bitcoin miners is directly related to the price of Bitcoin. So when Bitcoin price is low, then nobody will be buying miners, and there's no demand for chips from the foundry. So they're aware of this dynamic, and they're not willing to compromise and risk their main business lines for temporary demand. So I think the way around it is we need to stabilize demand, and this is where companies like Acre come into play. If they're getting involved in mining and they're allocating capital every quarter to purchasing ASICs, then we can kind of have a stable demand that is not bound to price fluctuations.
Very, very good. Can you give us a little bit of a picture of what Bitcoin mining in North America looks like at the moment, Samson? So I guess to begin with, maybe use the examples of the two Blockstream locations, and then I'm sure you're aware of the other big mining outfits. I think there's some in Texas, but so two things here. So what is the sort of the contributing hash power on the Bitcoin network that's coming from North America at the moment, and then secondly, what are the primary power sources? Is this electricity, and what's it coming from?
Yeah, so I guess the biggest players right now would be us and Hut 8. I think recently they did a roll up into another thing. They did some SPAC offering. I forgot the name of it, but I think we're the two biggest right now in North America. And I would say North America, or actually, let's just say excluding China, I think everything is probably about 40% of the network. China's probably 60 and dropping. But the primary energy sources in North America are hydro and probably nuclear. So our facility in the US is using a large chunk of nuclear power. I think that one's like 80% of our power mix. And then the rest is just hydropower.
Wow, yeah, that's interesting. Let's switch gears a little bit. So there's a couple of other things I wanted to get to today. So one of those is a Liquid, right? So the Liquid network it's a Bitcoin sidechain. Blockstream, you guys have been you've been working on this for quite some time, but it's been out in the wild for 2 years or so, right? So, well, firstly, quickly, so let's understand what Liquid is.
Yeah. So the Liquid network is a Bitcoin sidechain. It's the first large-scale adopted sidechain of Bitcoin. So a Bitcoin sidechain essentially is a separate blockchain, but without its own native currency. So you have a lot of blockchains out there, but they all have their native token and they sell their token. But for Liquid, the native token is Bitcoin. You peg in Bitcoin into the Liquid network, essentially by locking it up on the Bitcoin main chain and unlocking it on the side chain. And we call that LBTC, or Liquid Bitcoin. So there's always a one-to-one relationship between Bitcoin and Liquid Bitcoin. So you can't print more Liquid Bitcoin. You need to have the Bitcoin in order to unlock Liquid Bitcoin. And the benefits are confidential transactions, faster block times, and the network also supports issued assets. So you can issue tokens in the Liquid network kind of at the same level of Bitcoin in the Bitcoin network. So if you imagine Bitcoin has one asset, which is Bitcoin, Liquid can have many assets, one of which is Liquid Bitcoin, and then you have Liquid Tether, USDT. You have LCAD, a Canadian dollar stablecoin from Bull Bitcoin, and there's also a Japanese yen stablecoin that Crypto Garage issued.
Right.
But I think the biggest thing is it's a way to scale up Bitcoin, and you can do more with the same code base. So Liquid is a fork of Bitcoin with some modifications. So you can have multiple sidechains or networks like this. That means you can remove some transaction from the base layer to reduce congestion. And I think Liquid's primary purpose is financial transactions and trading. So you can move funds quickly between different exchanges, Bitfinex, BTC Turk, Sideshift, etc. HODL HODL now has a lending product that's heavily based upon Liquid assets. And yeah, you can do a lot of cool stuff with the Liquid network that you can't do on Bitcoin.
And one of the reasons I wanted to get the context here, Samson, is because, I think you tweeted about this, which is probably where I saw it, but one of the things that was quite interesting last week, right? So, well, no, I guess it was probably the start of this week. So if we go back to last weekend when Bitcoin hit that new all-time high of, I don't know, 61, 62 USD. And then we're just kind of cruising. And then there was a Twitter alert from one of these, I don't know which one it was, but one of these, you know what I'm talking about, one of these on-chain Twitter alert bots, right? And so the bot said something like, I don't know how many it was, but a massive amount of Bitcoin had been transferred to Gemini. And so people were interpreting this as a big Bitcoin whale was about to dump a whole lot of Bitcoin on Gemini. And so I'm not sure if this narrative is actually true, but the narrative is that, this kind of sparked some FUD, and it spooked people. And so we did have quite a significant Bitcoin correction or crash after that. We've since mostly recovered, and the market has resumed again. But I just, it's really interesting what is happening now with these sort of on-chain analytics and the psyops, right? That big whales now they're using on-chain transactions as a means to try and move the market one way or the other. It's quite interesting, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's always been the case because everything on the Bitcoin blockchain is transparent. You can see movements, and exchange wallets are largely known.
Yes.
That can be improved if they start using different addresses, but primarily, like, a lot of exchanges use one address or a handful of addresses, so it can be traced and tracked, and you can get those bots that monitor them. But I think Liquid does help in this regard because of its confidential transactions. So a Liquid transaction is effectively encrypted. If I send you 1 Bitcoin on Liquid, nobody else can see that transaction. You can't see how much was sent or the asset type. So I could have sent you Liquid Canadian dollars or Liquid USD, or I could have sent you Liquid Bitcoin, and people just can't tell which was sent. And the benefit of that is that you don't have these bots that can report on these transactions and create that FUD. And I think the adoption of Liquid is growing a lot this year. We've seen a lot of interest. Paolo from Bitfinex, he's mentioned that he's seen month over month the growth of Liquid transactions effectively doubling. And the average transaction for Liquid Bitcoin is 1 LBTC. So people are figuring out that they can use this to their benefit, not just for faster movement, but to obscure transactions from everyone else and not get front run by everyone on Twitter.
Yeah, that is exactly right. Okay. Well, tell you what, Samson, let's just go to a very quick break, and then we'll come back. And I just want to finish off. Love to get your thoughts on Bitcoin and kind of the wider market conditions, what you're seeing, what your expectations are. And I also want to talk about Infinite Fleet, this game that you founded. So yeah, we'll be back in 1 second.
All right.
In today's crypto market, the team at Brave New Coin are the sector's leading builders of custom crypto indices. BNC's powerful indexing engine draws on Brave New Coin's premium data to calculate high-frequency intraday and end-of-day indices for a wide range of index products. BNC's custom indices help you to gain exposure to the crypto assets class and track your performance against the market without having to become a stock picker. Not sure what you need? A Brave New Coin consultant can help you assess your requirements. Contact BNC today to find out more. Are you ready to trade the future of crypto today? Introducing Leverage, a self-custodial decentralized exchange that performs with the speed and features you're accustomed to. Leverage is fast. It's powered by Gluon, a revolutionary DeFi infrastructure that makes DeFi work at scale. It brings speed, transparency, and massive gas efficiencies to its users. Say goodbye to exchange hacks, front-running, Ethereum network congestion, and high fees. Leverage is the future of trading. It combines the best features of CeFi with all the benefits of DeFi. Like William Gibson said, the future is already here, but in this case, it's evenly distributed and completely decentralized. Go to leverage.io and trade the future of crypto today.
All right, we're back, and I'm with Samson Mow, He is the CSO at Blockstream, among other things. So we'll talk about Infinite Fleet in one moment, Samson. But first off, so yeah, I'd love to get your thoughts on what you see happening with Bitcoin, because it is just such an interesting time, right? So we're sort of just under the Bitcoin all-time high that we hit last weekend, and there's just wave after wave of kind of new bullish announcements of new companies getting into the space, new institutions putting Bitcoin on their balance sheet. Just this week, I think it was it Morgan Stanley that is going to enable Bitcoin investments from their high roller clients. People that have 3 million in assets with Morgan Stanley. But yeah, so, and there's also this narrative of the Bitcoin super cycle, which, yeah, I'm not sure what your thoughts are there. Also, of course, stock to flow. So look, there's a lot going on. What's your perspective?
Well, I definitely think this year we're going to see $100,000 per Bitcoin. I actually predicted that last year sometime, but yeah, I just can't see it not reaching 100,000 this year just because of all the adoption. And this time is very different from the last bull run. It's like you said, it's a lot of institutions, a lot of old school players or old financial institutions trying to get into Bitcoin. And also public market companies. So Tesla joined the ranks, buying 1.5 billion in Bitcoin. Square has been buying Bitcoin. MicroStrategy has been buying steadily. I mean, they buy every dip, and it takes time for these institutions to get into it. They can't just they all can't move as quickly as MicroStrategy moves. So I imagine right now in corporate boardrooms across the world, they're discussing strategies on how to do Bitcoin purchases, how to custody, how to handle, and it's just a matter of time. So there's like no way that we were not hitting 100K this year, I think. And it might even go higher than that. But conservatively, I would say 100,000 this year. It might go higher. It might jump to 200, 300, and it could come back down. But I think we'll maintain a floor of 100K after 2021.
Yeah, very interesting. Yeah, to me, I think I agree with that. It just feels like there's just too much going on, and it's less than a doubling to 100K from here. And when we know that when Bitcoin moves, well, there's no asset on the planet that moves like Bitcoin. When the brakes are taken off and bull signals are go, right? All right.
Yeah.
Let's just see what happens. Okay, so I said we'd talk about Infinite Fleet. So what's the background here? I know that this is a passion project for you, right? So yeah, what's the story?
Yeah, so Infinite Fleet is an MMO strategy game. It's an open world game where you can explore the galaxy. You can fight against the Aatrox, the alien race, and it's primarily PvE at start, so player versus environment. So everyone is part of the USF, and they're battling the alien threat. And eventually, we hope to open it up to PvP and more interesting things. But it's leveraging the Liquid network in multiple ways. So we're using what we're calling a dual token model. There is one security token or security token offering, or STO, and that is how we're fundraising for the project. We've had a number of investors. Adam Back has invested, Charlie Lee, along with a number of others. And we have a crypto asset for the game currency. So if you know World of Warcraft, there's World of Warcraft Gold. So effectively, the game currency in Infinite Fleet is called INF, and that will be a crypto token on the Liquid network. So those are the two tokens. And recently, we've made the decision to make the ships in Infinite Fleet NFTs. So those will be tokenized. And there's a reason for that, because we want peer-to-peer trade. And that is the primary driver for making them into NFTs, because the game currency, INF, is going to be the primary mechanism for player-to-player trade. So they'll use INF to trade for ships with other players. And because everything is on the Liquid network, you can conduct an atomic swap, which is a trustless transaction. So I construct a transaction with you. Let's say your ship is 100 INF, And if we both construct that transaction and broadcast it, and that will be executed. But you don't need to send me the ship first, and then I send you the money, or vice versa. It just happens all at once or not at all. So that's the way that we're using blockchain technology and the Liquid network to bring a new open economy to players, where the game currency can be portable. It can leave the game. They can do what they want outside of the game, along with those tokenized ships.
Wow, that sounds very cool. And that would be one of the first examples then of a real in-game item or weapon or skin or currency that can be removed from the game's ecosystem and brought back in and cross gaming universes, right?
Yeah, potentially. I mean, the vehicle for the security token offering is a publishing entity called Exordium, and that is the entity that is fundraising. So as a game publisher, what we hope to do is license or develop in-house additional games. But all the games in the Exordium ecosystem will have the potential for inter-game trade and interoperability of items.
Very cool. And well, I have to ask you then, so because NFTs have been such a, well, it's just been incredible to watch the NFT market boom over the last few months, right? So, Samson, what's your take on NFTs? What's going on? What do you think?
I think NFTs can be an interesting vehicle if it confers some new functionality. So if you're an artist and you can now tokenize your artwork and have a direct relationship with your supporters or fans, that's an interesting thing.
Yeah.
If you can build in a mechanism where the artist can have a portion of future trades or future sale of their art, that's also interesting. But I think certain things like I don't know, if you're just downloading a GIF from the internet and making it into an NFT, I think there's some Ethereum site that's letting you tokenize tweets. That's not very interesting. I mean, that's just the craze part of the fad. And then you have closed gateways, closed ecosystems like NBA Top Shot, where effectively they're marketing it as you can own this NFT, it's yours. But if you read the terms of service, it just says you can buy it on their website, and that's it. So you can't really do anything. And I would say if you're going to market this as you can own something, then I should be able to take those NBA Top Shot NFTs and build my own website and monetize it in some way, or monetize those NFTs in some way. But that's actually not the case. So it's more like a book where you can show people I bought something on a website. And I don't think the full potential of this technology is being leveraged in any meaningful way. So like I said, for Infinite Fleet, there is a tangible reason for making the ships NFTs. It's not because we want you to buy an NFT ship. It's because we want to have peer-to-peer trade where you can take the ship out of the game and perform an atomic swap with other players. And the reason also for the game currency being a crypto asset is because we want to have new dynamics for gameplay. So if you know of MMO games, a guild in Infinite Fleet, they're called a division. They typically can accumulate resources for the guild. And in EVE Online, people have infiltrated guilds and stolen money from the guild just because it's like a database entry for one account.
Yes.
But if you have the game currency as a crypto asset, then you can leverage a lot of the existing Bitcoin infrastructure, like wallets, and specifically hardware wallets and multi-sig wallets. So you could have a guild wallet that is a 3 of 5 multi-sig wallet, and you're using Blockstream Jades to secure your game currency, and then no one can just log into your account and steal everything from your guild. So I think this actually opens up a new frontier for games. And the way we're approaching these crypto assets is we want to hide the complexity from the view of the player.
Yes.
So a lot of the games out there that call themselves blockchain games, they are taking the opposite approach, which is, as a player, you want to play a blockchain game, therefore you will go to an exchange and buy mana or buy ether and then come back to us. And I don't think, as a game developer, that is going to happen. We're not at that stage yet.
No.
So for Infinite Fleet, all the crypto stuff, all the blockchain stuff is hidden from the player. You can create an account, play the game, and you have a non-custodial wallet where you're accruing your INF tokens from gameplay, from social activity. So it can't be farmed. You actually need to participate in raids and large-scale events to earn it. And that will just go into your wallet. And if you want to trade a ship, you can do so. But none of it is a barrier to entering the game. So for us, the game is the most important part of the offering. Without a good game, then you just have a blockchain and some tokens, and that's not a sustainable model outside of the period of time where people are in a frenzy or in a craze.
Very much so. What's the timeline on the Samson? So are you guys in like a beta or something at the moment? What's the progress?
So we're in alpha testing phase right now. We probably got about 100+ people in the alpha already. We're opening up gradually, just so we can stabilize everything, like the launcher, the download system, and the server infrastructure. But the beta will happen towards the end of this year. But we're already selling ships. And even before we had announced that the ships would be NFTs, we've had 300 purchases of ships. So people are buying these just because they want the ship and they want to try the alpha. Down the road, we'll have free ships, but for now, just to limit resource demand on our team, we're just letting in people that have bought a ship or have invested in the security token offering.
Nice, yeah, that makes sense. And you've got a really cool, I guess you call it like what's a trailer, right? It's like a 2-minute trailer. I watched that yesterday, so and you can see that on your website, and we'll put links in the show notes and point people there very soon. I've just seen like the NFT thing is weird because we're seeing signs that the NFT market is getting a little bit ridiculous because I don't know if you've seen Pringles, the tasty snack makers, they've released some kind of Pringles NFT. There's a toilet paper brand called Charmin. I've never heard of these people. I guess it's an American brand, but they've done they've put an NFT out as well. So when this Taco Bell, exactly. When these big brands are getting involved, it's either we're either on the cusp of something incredible, and this is the mainstream adoption we want, or things are getting a little bit hot and weird.
Yeah, I would say it's hot and weird. People look at the space and they see, oh, that guy just sold something for millions of dollars. I want to do it too. But that's not really how it works. So they sold something for millions of dollars because they're an artist that can draw that demand to their artwork. You may not be able to do the same. And it's similar, like Charlie Lee, he did a breakdown of NBA Top Shot in a thread about NFTs, and he outlined it very clearly that these things have value because the NBA is backing it. It's got the NBA brand, similar to how other NBA memorabilia will have value too, because it's associated with the NBA. If you did something similar without the NBA, it would not be commanding these premiums. The NFT token is actually pretty irrelevant in this case. So, I mean, it's done on a private blockchain, right? So you can't really do anything with it, and their terms of service don't allow you to really do anything. It's just a collectible that you can display and show ownership of. But as Charlie mentioned, if that website was to go down, then, well, it's gone. Similar to like NFT game items, like you shouldn't buy an NFT game item because you want the NFT, because games have a life cycle and a lifespan. 10 to 20 years maybe, and then when the game is gone, you have a token in your wallet that points to something that no longer exists. So the only reason should be providing some function, which is the case for Infinite Fleet. But I think people are just in a craze right now, and they just are wrapped up in the potential to earn money somehow.
Yeah, that's right. And look, that is often just the way it goes in crypto bull markets. You know, some of the Taco Bell stuff, it just reminds me of the Long Island blockchain iced tea from
Yeah.
from 2017. But hey,
Well,
it's just,
it's similar to ICOs, right? Back in the ICO boom, everyone wanted to do an ICO because
yeah.
they just see the money coming in. But then, it's not sustainable in the long run.
All right, we better leave it there. Hey, a lot of fun catching up with you again today, Samson. So close this out. Tell the people where they can go to find you on your various platforms, what they should do if they want to engage with Blockstream mining like a boss, and where they can go to find out all about Infinite Fleet.
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter. My handle is Excellion, EXCELLION, and Blockstream is just at Blockstream. Infinite Fleet is at Infinite Fleet, and same for the websites, just at a.com. You can learn more about the Blockstream mining offerings if you want to get involved. We have an announcement coming out in the next couple of weeks, so stay tuned for that. And for Infinite Fleet, check out the website. We have a public sale in Europe via the Stoker platform. That's stokr.io. And yeah, keep in touch.
Awesome. All the best, Samson. Thanks very much, and bye for now.
Thanks, Andy.
All right, well, there you go. That is today's episode. Thank you very much to Samson Mow, CSO at Blockstream, for coming back on the show and giving us the update on all things Blockstream and Infinite Fleet. Some of the links are in the show notes to Blockstream, Infinite Fleet. You can watch that trailer that we spoke about. Also that Seetee investment letter, which is a great read if you haven't read it, and also the podcast that I did about that letter. Also, if you are still listening, a little bit of a treat for you people that listen to the end of a podcast. Slight little crypto conversation Easter egg. I'm sure Samson won't mind, but I was still recording our Zoom call when we finished, and so Samson gave me some cool sci-fi related intel about Seetee. I think Samson was meaning to bring this up during the podcast if there was an opportunity, because obviously sci-fi is kind of an ongoing theme here at the Crypto Conversation, and Samson is aware of that because he's been on the show before and done the Crypto Conversation hot take round on the first episode, so you can go back and check that. And obviously I get the vibe that Samson is a massive sci-fi nerd himself. I mean, anyone who starts this massive online game project, world, universe, Infinite Fleet, you've got to be a massive sci-fi nerd to go down that rabbit hole. So anyway, props to Samson, and here is the little Easter egg. So we're gonna we'll finish the show with this. So just before we do that, I have to say, of course, if you did enjoy the show, please do subscribe to the Crypto Conversation podcast and whatever podcast app you are using. Look, give us a 5-star rating and review in iTunes. We need some more reviews. That's always appreciated. But anyway, I'm going to say bye for now. See you real soon. Quite a few more podcasts in the pipeline for this week, so do stick around, and we'll leave you with this quirky, cool little sci-fi Easter egg courtesy of Samson. All right, boom, there you go. Easy. That was good.
Yeah, that was good.
Cool. I think we feel like we covered quite a lot of ground.
Yeah. There's one more interesting thing too, which we didn't get to talk about, but the name CT is actually from a sci-fi novel. I guess Roque is a sci-fi fan, but CT is what they call, what was it? I had it on the printout here. It's called contra-terrene, which is antimatter. And it's super expensive to produce antimatter in this science fiction universe. So I think he's saying Bitcoin is super rare and super exotic, like antimatter.
Wow, that is super interesting. Yeah, I wish I knew that. I'm going to use that somewhere, and I think you should use that somewhere in Infinite Fleet. But yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, maybe.
This was the Crypto Conversation for Brave New